Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk, back another video day, and today we're going to be talking about the Houston Rockets potentially signing Ben Simmons. I never thought I'd actually talk about this in my life, or say what I'm about to say, but I would love for the Houston Rockets to add in Ben Simmons. And but it's just one condition. It's one condition. Now, Rockets fans, don't freak out that I'm saying this, because look, I'm not going to say Ben Simmons is amazing, because I think he's a terrible scoring player, obviously. We know that shooting-wise, he's turned into such a terrible player. Sure, I think the shooting percentage actually isn't that bad at 55%, but he makes, for his size as well, being 6'10", I see way too many times with this guy where he has wide open or way easy layups that he misses. It's just really upsetting when that happens. And I think offensively, scoring wise, nobody should want this guy on your team. If Ben Simmons, if he had no value whatsoever, outside of his scoring, and scoring was all you were bringing in with Ben Simmons, nobody should should be interested in signing for him at all. And he'd be playing in Europe right now if his only good part of his game was scoring. But it's not. This guy is a great defender, start off with that, and a great facilitator. This year, averaging 7 assists per game and 25 minutes per game. In his career, he's averaged over 7 assists per game. He's averaging 1 steal per game, a half a block per game, 5 rebounds per game. So, sure, offensively, scoring-wise, he is a terrible scorer. But when it comes to facilitating and rebounding and defensively, this is the guy you want on your team. When it just comes to that, not looking at scoring. And I will say this, if the Rockets traded for Ben Simmons, you thought Dallas Mavericks fans would be upset with what happened last night with Luka Doncic. Now, for me as a Rockets fan, that'd be 10 times worse. I would be livid. I don't even know how that works because Ben Simmons has a $42 million contract. The Rockets, I guess the only way it'd be okay if the Rockets traded for Ben Simmons, if the Rockets sent a terrible contract like Fred VanVleet for Ben Simmons and got 3 first-round picks with Ben Simmons for taking on that terrible contract. But that's not going to happen. But that's not why we're talking about Ben Simmons going to the Rockets. It's not because a trade's going to happen. And the Rockets would be dumb if they ever traded for this guy. But there have been reports going around that Ben Simmons is, considering about asking Brooklyn for a contract buyout, which contract buyouts start to happen around after the NBA trade deadline. And you'll see teams who really have nothing to play for agree to contract buyouts or waive or cut players after they're not tradable and they're expiring deals. And that happens a lot. You see big names get bought out or cut. And Ben Simmons, I think, is a heavy candidate to be a buyout player. And I don't think anybody wants his $42 million contract. As a Rockets fan, if that contract's coming here, I can never say I'd never watch a Rockets game again or I'd never watch another game this year. But I would definitely boycott a little bit if the Rockets traded for that contract, which is not happening. But if you're telling me Ben Simmons is, a free agent, you can sign him, and Ben Simmons is going to sign for the vet minimum, which at most vet minimum's $2.53 million. Of course, I will take Ben Simmons on this team. Look, I think one of the biggest reasons why people don't like Ben Simmons or people don't want Ben Simmons and people will say, sometimes, you'll hear, I don't want my team to get Ben Simmons. It's mostly because of the contract he has. Sure, maybe they're saying they don't want their team to get Ben Simmons because of how bad he is as a scorer, his confidence, maybe his injuries. But I think his contract is 50% of why, you'll see fans of other teams or front offices say, we want nothing to do with this guy. But if this guy is a free agent and any team has a chance to sign him for the vet minimum where it's $1 million to $2.5 million for the rest of the season, and you get to bring in a good defender, a good rebounder, and a great facilitator, I think Ben Simmons' interest in the buyout market would be huge. Just because you don't have to worry about the terrible contract anymore. And that's why I think maybe at least a good chunk of the league would be interested in signing Ben Simmons if he's only going to cost 2.5 million dollars. And look, I'd love to see the Rockets bring him in. And here's a couple of reasons. Let's start off with this. He fits well with this Rockets team, with what their motto, is they're a defensive team, they're a rebounding team. That's what Ben Simmons adds to. And here's a guy who can play he can play 1 through 5, and that's great. He's 6'10". He can play point guard, and he can play center. He can play anything between that. Shooting, well, I don't know about playing him at shooting guard, but he can do it. I don't suggest it, but he can play at the 3, he can play at the 4, he can play at the 5, or he can play at the 1. I wouldn't say he can play 1 through 5, but he can play really everything outside of playing the 2. And so that's great to have, right, with Ben Simmons. And I think he brings something that this Rockets team is built on, is defense and rebounding. And something that they really struggle on is half-court offense, and they really need that. And that I think Ben Simmons would really help with the half-court offense struggles that this Rockets team has. I really do. I've watched this year and a little bit of last year, how good of a facilitator this guy is. And it's so underrated because everybody still hates on him because of, how bad of an offensive scoring player he is, because it feels like that's what everybody really focuses on when it comes to players nowadays. At least the TikTok ball knowledge people, all they focus on is scoring. It's like the only attribute people care about. But facilitating is such a huge deal. And this guy still gets solid defensive attention because he is 6'10". And so there could be some open guys on the floor. If Ben Simmons is a Houston Rocket, I think it could open up the floor a little bit because, it's not like you see people leaving Ben Simmons open. Like, maybe if he's at the 3-point line, they're gonna leave Ben Simmons open. But if he's past the 3-point line, you see a defender on Ben Simmons. I saw it last night because he's 6'10". He can attack the rim. He might not be always great at it, but he can attack the rim, and he's really fast to get into the basket, and very dangerous at facilitating as well. So, and also here's another thing is one of the reasons why I support the Rockets signing Ben Simmons is because of Amen Thompson, for starters. Amen Thompson for most of the season has been the backup point guard for the Houston Rockets, obviously, and Jabari Smith Jr. gets hurt. He becomes a starter. Well, we have seen what Amen Thompson has done, right? Is there any reason for Amen Thompson to be coming off the bench ever again for the Houston Rockets? No. Amen Thompson was playing the backup point guard, and he's starting now at small forward or power forward. Fred VanVleet's starting point guard. The Rockets need a backup guard. They need someone coming off the bench as a guard. I like Aaron Holiday. I love Reed Shepherd, but the Rockets need a better facilitating and possibly better rebounding and defensively backup guard. And Ben Simmons would do that. And also, here's another thing. This is another thing for the Rockets. If you add in Ben Simmons, maybe most nights he's playing backup point guard for this Rockets team, and he's giving the Rockets some solid minutes, facilitating and defensively and rebounding off the bench for this Rockets team off the bench. Maybe one night Steven Adams can't play, and Steven Adams is not feeling too well, he can't go. Instead of having to play Jock Landale as your backup center, Ben Simmons can be the backup center instead. So that's the good thing of having someone who can play 1 through 5. So I would love to see the Rockets sign Ben Simmons. Obviously, if that contract is with it, which is the only way you get the contract is if you trade for him, I would freak out. But if we're talking about Ben Simmons, all you got to do is sign him to the vet minimum. Like, give me one good reason why you wouldn't want Ben Simmons on this team if it's the vet minimum. And he improves things that the Rockets are already so good at. And also improves one thing that the Rockets are not good at with half-court offense. So, yeah. And look, he also might improve this shooting. I obviously himself would not improve that shooting with like his own shooting because he is a terrible shooter. But I've seen some players shoot lights out when Ben Simmons gives them the basketball. And I mean, like really, I mean, I've seen it with Cam Johnson. I've seen it with some other Brooklyn Nets players in the last couple of years, and I mean, Ben Simmons is a great passer, and sometimes, I mean, you will see shooters shoot lights out when Simmons gives you the rock. So let me know your thoughts on the Rockets potentially signing Ben Simmons. Keep in mind that large $42 million contract would not be coming with it, and it's the only way this deal happens if Ben Simmons and the Nets agree to contract buyout, which reports have been saying that Ben Simmons could definitely approach the Nets about this. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and peace out.